On a day where Pokemon Showdown refuses to allow me to play battles for more than, like, a minute before it decides to disconnect me, I bring you tournament coverage from the NU Seasonal Tournament. And I'm gonna be honest, there's not much in particular we're going over today beyond two things. One, Dragon types in NU are phenomenal right now. And literally every game, Goodra, Duraludon, Dragalge for some unknown reason, Flygon, yeah, I was gonna say, oh, there's one down here. Flygon. And where was he? Ah, yes, Flygon and a Duraludon. Despite Dragon types being viewed as one of the best types to have. It's like Dragon, Fairy, Steel. I feel like those are the three most commonly associated types, which is being very good. You still have a whole bunch that are super viable in NU. Some of them are getting even better. Goodra, Duraludon, two mons that generally viewed as garbage, actually seeing a lot of increased usage as of late. It's very cool to see. I'm going to talk about it a little bit today as we go over these battles. And as you can see, we start off with an incredible Goodra game for Danny here. This mon literally just has to deal with Diancie, and that is getting toxic and knocked, and there's nothing it can do. Nothing you can say. It's just going to have a very bad day. Leave a like, or you will too. Subscribe button down there as well. Now, game one, Danny got Spike Semi-Stall into a Serena balance that has no steal. Shout out to Engineer. And this game is pretty horrible for Danny, I would say, for one main reason, and that is, how are you ever spike stacking against Serena with this team? I really don't see the line. It just looks very miserable, and Serena in general has a lot of leverage into this team. Goodra's kind of the only mon that it doesn't like seeing, but otherwise it's going to check the Scooter pretty reliably. It's not great. This Keys matchup's kind of whatever. It has to be a very specific Keys set to beat Serena long term. Woach is getting knocked on. Goo, like I said, you get knocked in and it just runs away screaming. Gligar, I guess it can Toxic and U-turn, potentially. And in Screamtail, it's annoying. You don't really want to take that interaction, but that's like the one mon. And otherwise, I mean, I really do like the Heracross into this team. It just looks very good, at least from preview. It depends on Terra types from there on out, but I do really, really like the Heracross's offensive angle. Because it's like, you have Terra types, and then you have maybe it's like dual Wing Beat Gligar? Because sometimes it runs that to be a better Flamigo check. I wouldn't expect it on this team, because you do have Screamtail as your Flamigo answer, but those are the observations. Nathaniel here leads off with a Gligar into the Serena, and y'all, you're about to see the most tragic turn one ever as it misses Toxic and gets knocked. Yay! And you're actually going to see in chat as well, Danny look, literally planned that out. So Danny, I guess, expecting the Serena lead because it does look very, very good. Want to get that Toxic early on, and he is punished for his good play with a miss. Now, it's only turn 3. One actually. It's only turn 1. So it could always be worse. And you see Heracross gets that orb active, and it's like, what do you switch into here? This is a Guts Heracross. Well, apparently Wo-Chien just barely takes anything. CC's coming out now, so Screamtail is able to be pivoted out. And at the very least, I mean, Danny, hey, you may have 3 spikes on your side of the field, but he's got a boot spam build because there's no removal and you have spike stacks, so, well, that's really all you can do. Spikes don't really matter that much. The main issue is that this team has a lot of knock users, and so everything's going to lose its item at some point. 1, 2, 3, 4, and you can even count this is a 5 with Trick. But overall, I think he's still got enough room to fight back. He's able to come out here as the WrestleCat comes back out. You're just going to continuously throw your Gligar out at your opponent here because it really doesn't do too much at this point anyhow. You got rocks, unless you're doing is maybe throwing off a knock. Good skew to play here, though, to still preserve it as a sack for later. Unfortunately, Serena does reveal no covert cloak needed. Vaporeon who? They just helmet, so it's going to punish the bear skew to pivots. But Goodra comes out now, and you're actually going to see this was an offensive DNC from OBB, as the knockoff here reveals that it was Power Herb, which could have been a problem. It just makes this turn very, very funny. And as we see, Danny does take the Toxic. But instead of sacking the Goodra, on the next turn again, Danny, a connoisseur of the preserve, goes into Klefki here as the rocks are set up, because rocks were very free from OBB there, and reveals Flash Cannon. As you can see here, this team does get 6-0'd by OTR Diancie otherwise, so you're pretty much forced to running Steel move on your Klefki, and then just throws off a little bit of a Gleam at the Incineroar. as it goes down, Bearskoo is able to come out again here, flip, turn on out, and basically just gonna keep bringing out Goodra. With the Diancie gone, Goo at the very least now can continuously be brought onto the field and just attack what's in front of it without too much foresight needed. You could Draco the Incineroar here as well to get rid of it, and this mandates a Heracross switch in from your opponent, which, I mean, you have Gligar to sack. This is why preserving your sacks is very, very good, because instead of having to try and, like, raw switch it a Scream or Woach, both of which would flop, you don't have to do that. And then we see an incredible double switch here. Instead of flip turning, which you could have still done once, but it's so much better to do it like this. You just get your Goodra back out, preserve more HP once again. And this just gives you another turn to pick up KO with the Goodra. Goodra putting in an insane amount of work here. Helping Danny claw back from the jaws of defeat. Literally has killed half of OBB's team here. Heracross goes back out. Goodra, of course you're preserving it forever. You don't need the Woach though at this point. It's still good because of the Monkey Dory, but it's not necessary to have. As you can see up here, OBB recognizing something definitely went wrong along here. New Glide was doubling and then don't have the balls to knock. He's talking about earlier with the Scuda play. I will admit, I kind of wondered why he didn't knock as well on that turn, because, like, I personally just didn't think he needed the Incineroar that much anyway, and it's like you cover that really nicely in case Danny makes that ballsy play, which he's somewhat forced to make with how behind he was. Scream able to protect up here, just make sure that you don't give this mon any random damage, and it reveals that it was the spin blocker all along. It would have been Terra Ghosting in front of the Serena, doing probably nothing back except getting knocked. But it is what it is. Protect here on the Monkey Dory. Psychic is very annoying, but Screamtail able to take a little bit of chip off on the monkey. All he needs is for it to still be alive in some manner, and you'll see what I mean later on. He's able to trade off the damage here. You could protect again if you really wanted. He opts instead to sack the Scooter, bring out Goodra, which will never die to a Psychic unless it super crits, which it does not. Maybe a regular crit still would have sufficed. Then it drops Draco. Insane Greed, by the way. Knockoff 110% killed that Monkey Dory. Yeah, Knockoff definitely killed, but I think this was because he didn't want the Serena coming in on Knock. And then Monkey actually could have killed with Psychic. So, hey, maybe it's not greed. It's just a good play. Shout out to Danny. Then he goes Scream here. Very nicely done as well. I wish I knew if Knockoff killed there, but I'm assuming since Danny switched, it didn't. I just have to assume, though, you could have still knocked. And if Helmet kills you, as a Synthesis is, you still get to do what it does here, which is Encore into Simp. Like, I don't know. I mean, that may just be me not knowing the damage, but obviously this still suffices for your endgame, because you just block off the Synthesis here. Your Psychic Noise forces Serena to struggle down, and is literally never going to get to recover. And Goodra finishes off at the end. So that was how many kills for Goodra? How many kills? Let's hit it with the run back. We're gonna have to skip a lot of turns before we see Goodra get its kills. So Klefki did kill Diancie. I mistook that one. Well, Goodra gets a kill on the Incineroar there. Goodra gets a kill on the Gligar there. That's 2. Damn, dude. I can't lie. I thought Goodra got like 4 kills. It did. Okay, Goodra got 4 kills. I thought it got 5. But yeah, Goo popping off in this game 1 of the series. Now, you may notice it says GG's and something else. Don't worry about the chat. It doesn't matter. Game 1 of that wonderful series. Game 2 here, Danny's got a very cool team. It's sort of got some Steel Overwhelm attributes to it with the Raptor, Duraludon, Meloetta core, potentially just aiming to set up for like Flygon winning. You know, you beat down a Bronzong, for example, and otherwise you just open up the game for Meloetta to do something. It's just also, again, hard offense, which is sort of the motto of current SVNU. Meanwhile, OBB has brought an Alolan Sandslash balance, which I don't know if I personally can support because that's an Alolan Sandslash, but it does compress an awful lot into that one slot. And hey, there's a Goodra on his team. That's a good pick. Anyhow here, this is an incredibly good matchup for Danny because, I mean, this is the steel type. It's getting close combated. Like, what are we doing? It's getting body pressed. Very bad for AOB. I think really the one saving grace is that Danny also has brought a pretty bad steel type in the form of a Duraludon. You know, it offers very few of the traits you want out of a steel type. Really all it is doing in current Inyu is like Chicken Monkey Dory, kinda sort of. And something else, I just, for some reason I'm blanking. But there are some mons that are so anxious to check just by being a steel type and very physically bulky, but others, like I said, Monkey Dory, it's like kind of more of a half check too. And it's something like Tornadus, I'm just not willing to call it a check at all too. So like Torn's gonna be pretty annoying this game. At least I would envision, and with the Monkey and Goodra, there's like some shared overwhelming there, even if I don't really feel like overwhelm's the right term, because it's more just beating. Anyhow, Psychic trade here, because you really need to try and do something about not losing to Staraptor. And a big hit off on it like that is always going to be good. Scrafty coming out here, because I think honestly he just wanted to not get immediately pressed by the, what's it called? The Duraludon, but also rocks are pretty likely. If you go low in Sand Slash to try to spin or something on a Stealth Rock, well, as I said, body press. So Scrafty just kind of catches a lot of possible plays and doesn't give you too many bad sequences in return. It also randomly lives Life Orb CC from Barraskewda, and it gets off a huge knockoff there. Now, will it die here? Of course, but you get rid of this thing's item. It's no longer an offensive threat. You're allowed to go to your Goodra now, pick it off with whatever attack you opt to go for. As we see here from Mr. OBB, it was a knockoff, which would have also covered if, like, Duraludon or Meloetta switched out. Most likely Meloetta. And as you can see, Goodra trained very well in its evasiveness stat, dodging that big Draco from the Duraludon. And now Alolan Sandslash pivoting in on the predicted Draco and then immediately doubling out. Because, well, you got to scout for that press. So Goodra comes back in. Yeah, I mean, it just comes in to die. But then there's a switch here, which means either that Duraludon is really, really slow or this Goodra's really, really fast. Or some combination thereof. Threat Spray Meloetta revealed, which is really cool to see. Means you don't have to waste a turn going for a Calm Mind. Mr. Tornadus gets a very fortunate speed drop. I'm pretty certain this is maybe indicating that U-turn didn't kill from Monkey. And he instead goes to Gligar because that U-turn at least does kill. Allows in Alolan Sandslash, but Dreadnought just comes right out and goes for Smash. And now we see OBB make a very, like, Hail Mary play here. Terra Waters to cover for the liquidation, but goes for Toxic as well. I assume this is some blend of wanting to not immediately die to Dread, but also wanting to make sure that, like, you catch the no, you know what? I'm thinking too small brain. He makes sure that it covered the Dread Terra. I was trying to say go if he's going Flygon on a predicted EQ, but no, this covers like basically everything. You Terra and you Toxic. And at the very least, you're getting some progress. As you see here though, Gligar lost the 1v1. Then Sandslash dies, and then it's Monkey Dory versus the world here. And even with a super duper fantastic crit, you still would not kill the Duraludon here with your Psychic. But thankfully this Duraludon is blind, and it just misses another Draco Meteor. No Flash Cannon. Danny, I guess, does have Flash Cannon, but it doesn't matter because there's the Flygon here, and it will just live the hit and can with Earthquake. Now, you may be saying, hey, Danny won 2 games. What's the point of showing a 3rd game? Well, I think there's no harm in showing a game where a Dragalge looked good in 2025 NU. Chandelure led versus the Thwackey, because it just, look at it versus this team. Look at Chandelure in this matchup, it's beautiful. Unfortunately for OBB, he then proceeds to miss the next Fire Blast on Drifblim. And Danny makes a very, just, reasonable flex play here. He goes for a Calm Mind. The rationale here being, the Drifblim isn't doing anything at all this game at this point anyway. But if your opponent switches, hey, why not greed for a Calm Mind? Why not? Because now you have a +1 Drifblim. He's able to strength stat back up. But then this reveals Dragon Tail. I'm gonna be honest, this next sequence is very, very funny to me. Is this Dragalge just sits in front of Danny's entire team and says, no, no, don't like you either. Grafai, no. That's what I would have said if he Dragon Tail. It's a bad day to be a Draco Meteor. It is a bad day to be a Draco Meteor. A 3rd miss. Like I said, maybe just Dragon Tail with Grafai out there is fine, but ultimately the sequence that OBB went for worked. You know, Pert is able to 2-tap this with the Earthquake. Fire Eye not able to actually beat down the team. Very nice to see Graf actually fail to sweep a team. The Mon is very good. Fire Eye is a very, very good Pokemon in Indy, and I do not like facing it. Hope you all understand. Slash are able to come out here, and random thought, maybe Ice Spinner could be good on this for the terrain matchup. Psychic Noise though is good to nothing. This is literally the team that Danny used in the SCL game of his that I covered, so we already know what this is. It's Calm Mind, Psychic Noise draining his Morning Sun. So we can't do anything to Slash it really either, especially without its Seed boost. It, I think, just does take too much from Axel. Flamigo comes out, and it gets outsped by the Scrafty. I mean, this is big banded, most likely. Although, yeah, that should be banded. I was gonna say maybe not, because that just still feels like too little damage, but it was a +1 Scrafty that tear it out of its weakness. And then Danny, with a nice little Drain Punch, get some HP back. And Flamigo's actually gonna push itself into range of the follow-up Drain Punch. So he's doing something, he's fighting. Danny's fighting here. The Chandelure can come out here. He opts for Monkey Dory because Monkey Dory actually has to come out. My bad at neglecting the speed boosts. You know how it is. These are live commentaries. There are verbal typos happen. What can I say? But Keys comes out here. Chandelure's a free switch in because Calm Mind Klefki. This is not doing anything to you. Espeon comes out. Basically, you're just saying, God, please let me dodge. He didn't dodge. Maybe Thwacky Sack was... I literally have just thought the Klefki spike's very funny. Like I said, maybe it was better to sack Thwacky and set Terrain first, and then go Espeon and try to KO, but like, I don't know. I think OBB had too much left. As I said, I mean, Dragalge looked really good this game. These first two games, Goodra looked good. Can we get a Flygon looking good? Only time will tell. Now we have the Doc versus Siri, as he's more commonly known by. Both teams basically, once again, the motto of this video is not just Dragon types, of course, offense being the best style in NU. Is something you take. I mean, literally look at the teams in this series. Offense. 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 I did originally look at this and think it was a balanced build, just because the Pokemon are very big. But no, that's offense. And then, hey, look, offense and offense. Yeah, if you're this far in, I could yap a little bit. Literally, we have so many mid-tier speed breakers like Chandelure, Basculegion, Doctricity. Trying to think of another one off the dome, and it's very hard. What if I go into my builder and look real quick? Breloom, I guess, is an okay one to mention, but it doesn't really run Sword Stance sets. Flamigo, you could count, I guess, as mid-speed tier with, like, banded sets. We got a lot of that type of breaker, and as a result, it's hard to account for all of them in the builder, one, but also, two, cover them just defensively. So, a lot of the time, it's just better to make your team so fast that, by nature of how speedy your team is, you check them all. Because they just don't get free turns to do things. Game 1 of this series, though, it's HO versus slightly less HO. The Alolan Ninetales has probably its best matchup it has ever seen since it first dropped to the tier, because there's no Steel type in sight. So whether it was specs, whether it's plot, both of them are pretty good. And you're going to have a lot of free turns to just click whatever attack. Meanwhile, this team doesn't have a ground type, so I like Toxtricity innately. I like Chinchino as well into any team that relies on Copper Raja as its Steel type. Just, it is a little bit easier to KO. Admittedly, still not the easiest task, but I always feel like there's a bit more of just a chance for Chinchino to win when it's Raj as the Steel. Admittedly, I feel the same way though about when it's Bronzong. I'm gonna stop talking. We're gonna let the game speak for itself. Basculegion led. Also, yeah, I used this team, but then I changed one Mon to be a Braviary. That was fun. Basculegion led with here. The Doc just knows this is a Rotom Heat, so it's not a threat. He goes for Shadow Ball as well, and that is a very Assault Vest Basculegion. My god. Inen follows it up with an Agility, predicting a double switch into the Chinchino. Very nicely done here. This has allowed him to outrun and Oko with a pump. Very nicely done here. He does have to switch, fearing Shadow Sneak, gets out the Chinchino here is it's actually Sucker Punch. Sucker Punch, which makes it a lot more annoying too. So now Mons actually have to fear it as a revenge killer. Knowing it's switched here, he gets it a little tidy up. Rotom Heat just gets evaporated by the tail slap. Very light work by the Chinchino. And now Copper is able to come out, and he does decide it's worth setting this game up for your Toxtricity and your Scream Tail by knocking Mirage, and it goes for Whirlwind instead of like Heavy Slam or something else. So Chinchino's still at full as well. It's going to be able to do some stuff defensively for both of these guys. Now, as I said, it's a good Alolan Ninetales matchup. You're going to see a lot of Blizzards click now. Toxtricity falls to the +2 Blizzard. Scream Tail comes out here now, gets a speed boost. Able to Calm Mind up. I'm assuming this is because Fire Blast doesn't kill. It may have also been checking for Terra types. Because as you can see, he hasn't Terra'd yet, so I don't know when's going to come out, but it will one day. Psychic Noise, again, because it's AV Legion, actually just lives, so it's able to trade off there. Very good kill to get. The Mun looked like he could have run away with the game, but he would have had to outplay Suckers, and that would have been tough. Now, Leaf Blade comes out from the Decky Dewey. As you see, Bonnet is the follow-up here, just to go for a little crunch. And the nice thing here is you can see Bum on the following turn. Make sure to deny Alolan Ninetales some random aggressive entry. Unfortunately, it comes out here, so it gets another kill. Jujito takes 74 from the Blizzard, and Decky Dewey is going to be the switch because you're just trying your best. Good Bullet Seed to mid-ground in case it switched. You would have still... I don't know if you kill, but you put it in range, I assume, of like Flygon, which could Terra Steel. I'm gonna be real here. This is where my brain starts getting a little confused. Cause like, I just Tail Slap. And if he goes to Sid, I would simply knock. The problem is it's not that simple. I think you'd probably be going for like Tail Slap into the Sid and then having to go Bonnet, and then you have to risk the double back to Tails. So it's kind of just something where you're keeping Chinchino out versus the potential Decidueye, as you saw there, and then maybe try to go for Knock. Bonnet comes out here though instead, as U-turn is revealed. So that better not be Swords Dance is all I'm saying. You better not be Swords Dance. Flygon's able to come out here though. You're always threatening Terra Steel. You can DD up or go for a Quake immediately. It's probably okay if you do that, because I think just double knock would be enough from Chinchino from there. But Q's there, and then Throat Chop. So as you can also see, no Terra was used this entire battle from Siri. Which, it's a decision that'll go down in the annals of history. Game 2. I feel like this is a very similar team to what Watashi brought this week in SCL, or I guess last week, where there's like just a whole bunch of offense, but there's also a Breloom. So it could be like Sash Loom. That would be my innate guess there. And we also see a very rarely used Pokemon in the Zoroark, and this is probably one of the few matchups where Zoroark looks pretty decent. Not for luring stuff necessarily, but I guess it could, with the help of Breloom, get a Shandy or Decid to switch into it. But just offensively, like, I suspect Zoro is rather strong here, because Raj doesn't want to take those attacks, and Tauros is a resist, but it's not bulky enough, even with that resistance to Dark, to really do a whole lot back. So, like I said, weirdly decent Zoroark matchup. My main worry is just going to be, again, you're trying to out-offense, and I actually really like Paldean Tauros into these matchups. It doesn't do a whole bunch innately in this matchup, because, frankly, Breloom, Scyther, you don't like seeing that. But if it Terras, it could maybe do some stuff, and it'll at least help you check Flygon. So that's always one of those mods I like having in this matchup. Just Intimidate in the Raw Bolt gives you a lot of extra defensive value. It's kind of like Raj, or Rhyperior, whereas Rockers, they still offer you so much offensively. They're just really generically good glue to throw into those builds that still give you a non-passive Pokemon, but they don't. It's not like throwing a Registeel in that team. Even then, people are pretty okay with Registeel offense. But you have a mod that can also just throw off attacks and be a problem. Also, Shandy is like innately annoying always, but not that bad. Anyhow, Breloom used U-turn, so as you can see, the doctor here is hacking. We know Breloom doesn't learn U-turn around here. And then also this play, very nice and aggressive. Knocking the Copper, deciding that it helps set up for presumably Scyther this game. Getting the steal low, I mean, it means you don't ever have to predict anything with CC later on. Obviously, go for it there. You're trying to KO the Raja, and SDing up would be the ultimate greed. And then we see a Flygon use Stone Edge, probably indicating a Choice Scarf set, so it's something you gotta keep in the back of your mind going forward. Berlin was for Bullet Seed. This shit does nothing at all. Like, this is disrespectfully bad damage, and I don't know if that indicates a very physically defensive Decid or something else. The Berlin does get sacked. This is kind of where losing Chichino early sucks, by the way, because now that one is kind of annoying. We do see the lure work, by the way. Like I said, hey, maybe you lure in a Decidueye at some point, and it did pay out. You could have Dark Pulsed again, maybe, but I don't know how much it actually gets you. Instead, he Terra Electrics to not kill with CC, but just to get Whirlwinded. What a pointless turn. What a pointless turn. For both players, by the way. I feel like that Whirlwind did not do what he wanted. I think he might have actually predicted the Terra into SD there. So I guess there was definitely something gained. You got the Terra part of it right. Just a very funny turn though. And as you can see there, like I said, it gets a nice little entry point there. CC is super effective into the Diancie because psych, that's a Zoroark. Now Scyther can come out. You could try to boost, but I feel like you always have to Trailblaze first. And he said he goes for Swords Dance, so he's just getting locked into that. You know, someone make that motherfucker clap slow. And you come up missing, no. You know how it is. If you know, you know. And I'm glad that someone can still relate to me all these years later. With that said, Scyther comes out now. Dual Wing Beat is very free. Never mind, it's no longer free. As I mentioned earlier, hey, this can Terra and still end up checking a lot of the other attackers, and he's not banded. He can switch up moves, so he kills with the Jet. Flygon comes out now, and unfortunately, Flygon versus the world will not be an endgame that the Doctor lives to tell the tale of. He gets outraged. We go to a game 3. I swear I've seen this Hyper Offense team used before. I do know I've seen this team used before. This is what the Doc brought versus Shinjinir. So Spec Sylveon, SD Overcool, Scarf Nape, standard Duraludon stuff, DD Flygon, and then a standard Cramorant. Just into HO. I don't really know what to call it in terms of anything else other than like Spike's lead HO. I was gonna say Shinjinir HO, but I don't think his team had this part of it. I don't think it had this. I do know it had this. I think it even had the Scream Tail. One thing to note with the Doc's team here is that this is kind of a weird Sylveon game. You're one of those slower breakers I talked about earlier. But against HO, like, when am I getting out? Ever. When am I finding a turn to break? Ever. Well, as you can see, he does the one thing you can do, and you lead with it. Because if you don't lead with the Sylveon here, you're basically admitting that this mon is going to sit on your team as a glorified death fodder, most likely. Maybe it somehow doubles in on Hariyama at a point. I don't know when that would be, but maybe it happens and you get a turn to throw off a Hyper Voice. Maybe you can come in on Torn, like I said, off a double. Or maybe you live a hit from a boosted Torn. But in terms of being a breaker, there's not a lot else it does. But by doing this, where you lead with it, Arcades goes for spikes and you do 50. That's really good. And then it's forced out. Decky Dewey comes out. Siri decides, I'd rather not. Sacks the keys. So this allowed you to actually get some mileage out of the Pokemon, a lot more than you normally would. Decid SDs, and I feel like some of this is not wanting to let it SD. Some of it's also, hey, Siri just switched out the Decidueye. So there's probably a reason he did that. I'm gonna just attack. Yama Terra Steel Belly Drums, though, as Quill comes in. That's not good. That's not good at all, so Cramorant's the switch in. It will be getting sacrificed to the greater good here. Surf, unfortunately, not going to get to be used because of Bullet Punch. This does allow you to go into Infernape, throw off a CC or a Flare Blitz. You opt for CC, though, I believe, right? Please don't. I was going to say, please don't make me look foolish. CC's better just so it doesn't let Dreadnought come out. And that mon's a lot more threatening than Screamtail. This is not AAA. So Calm Mind Screamtail, there is no Pixelate. Duraludon actually does kind of check it. Flash Cannon a couple times, at least get it a little nice and low. And then from here on out, you're pretty good. Boom Burst comes out. That's not gonna matter. And then we see Siri make the most random, but like, why is Calm Mind being used? I just refuse to believe there was ever a role that you lived. I really don't think you ever lived that move. With +3. So he gives damage off on Yama and just gives up Scream for free. The Sylveon did so much more than it had any right to do. Flygon comes out here, DD's up, goes for Scale Shot after the Earthquake. I wanted to be cool and say that ahead of time, but I'm wrong. The Torn reveals Citrus Berry, meaning this is the cursed set. It's probably, if I'm not mistaken, Plot Tailwind? Actually, no, I'm super mistaken. You know why I'm mistaken? If he was Tailwind, he would have clicked it there, and then gone Dreadnought. And then, if it's Jolly Dread, it outspeeds Scarfnib. Instead, he just gets outsped, dies to CC. And the same can be said for Hariyama. Should have gone for Bullet Punch. Maybe you got the Ultra Crit that crashes PS. You never know. But yeah, these were some seasonal games, and I really do think the rise of a lot of these Dragon types has been cool to see. Duraludon fitting in really nicely with a lot of those classic Steel Overwhelm type of cores. Goodra being a pretty good piece for both very fat teams and more balanced teams alike, just by compressing a lot of defensive utility into one slot. Generic utility even, while still having some semblance of offensive pressure. Flygon, of course, still being one of the top 3 monster tiered, and hey, we even saw a little cameo from Jagalga Lauga here. All it did was click Dragon Tail and miss a Draco, but in our hearts, it did far more than it could ever put into words. Catch y'all in the next one. Leave a like, subscribe down below, tell me your favorite Dragon type, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out, everyone.